And I am going to, it's now recording. Welcome everybody. We're going to be starting chapter 5 tonight of the Gate of Unity. Rabbi Chirik, please go ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be very powerful statements that we're going to say right at the beginning of the chapter and right at the end of the chapter. In the middle, we're going to explain some basic fundamentals in emotional impact and how we get to the emotional impact. And it's about analyzing seeing the two sides of a coin of each subject. And one of them is possible to the other to understand, and the other side of the coin is only possible to understand in a flash of a moment. But that flash is enough to make emotional impact. Then we can't get there directly, and the only way to get there is through studying the part of the coin which we can study. And what's gonna happen is, the secret to happiness. Happiness is when you put effort into something, you become happy. But ultimate happiness is when ultimate happiness is when you use the deepest aspects of your brain. Now, I don't know if people know about this, but if you want a trigger for happiness, there is one. There is a trigger for happiness, meaning to say that automatically, if you put mental effort and you use the deepest aspects of your left brain, an automatic outcome of that will be happiness. So there is a step-to-step process to get to happiness. We're also going to speak about how happiness is connected to emotional impact. It's a state which you can't get to, but if you get the one, the other one happens automatically. So when you understand properly and you put effort, automatically you're going to be happy, and automatically you're also going to have an impact that you align yourself. You automatically become aligned with the truth for a moment, but that's enough. So when it's possible, let's put up the text, because this is going to be really, really fundamental. Okay, v'hine, and behold, after we already explained. Now, this is the 5th chapter, where there's 3 chapters. The 4th, 5th, and 6th are all about how do we study so it makes emotional impact. So after we explained to you in the last chapter, we have to reflect in the parts, dafka, specifically in the specifics. And that's the only way we're going to get it to impact. We must learn all the parts of the different levels. Madrega means steps, all the different steps. In all the parts of the order of the chain. Now, the chain of creation. In other words, it is imperative. It is a must to know all the parts of the various steps in all the parts of the order of creation. The Abiyah refers, it's an acronym, refers to the 4 worlds of Atzilus. Atzilus is when God establishes his personality in order that we could relate to him, in order that divinity will be able to be revealed in the world. And Biyah, the 3 worlds. One is God's thought. First one is called Bria. Yitzira is God's speech, and Asiya is God's action. And we live in the world of action, even though we have a connection to all the worlds. And the divinity is the highest world. So when we authentically connect with our divinity, then we're connecting with the 4th world. And there is a process, there is a formula to authentically connect with the divinity. And that's what we're explaining now. Lisbainen Bahem. So again, the 4 worlds are called Abiyah, but they refer to Atzilus. Atzilus is not a creation. It's when God establishes his personality. The purpose of doing that is that now we're going to be able to relate to the divinity. and we're going to be able to reveal divinity in the created worlds. And the three created worlds are Bria, that's God's thought, Yetzirah, God's speech, Asiya, God's action. We live in Asiya, in God's action. Again, the four worlds are called Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. Lizbain Bahem, and we need to reflect on them. Ashe'ena muvanim l'chol. These four worlds are not understood to all people. Mechlal Teres, when they study most of Torah. In other words, this is the only place you're going to get it. You're going to study the Talmud, and you're going to look in different places. You're going to learn the written Bible, and you're not going to find this. It's not understood from the general traditional Torahs. This is information that was passed down from Moses. It was secret and slowly was revealed, but now it's organized in this book. It's organized for everybody. All of them, all the levels that you need to know are explained in a special pamphlet, and that's the one we're learning now. Minatzarach, whatever you need, mikol prat, from any detail. In other words, you don't need to look anywhere else. Whatever you need from every detail of creation is here, is right here in these 54 chapters. Uvemela yuvan lemavin, and automatically you're going to understand, to an understanding person, v'yedea kama pratim, you will know other parts, acherim, other details, other specifics from what this book. In other words, when you learn these 54 chapters, you know enough details that you're going to be able to figure out other details. However, first, we need to preface in the quality of reflection. Gam b'derech prat. Also, we need to go into a specific part. One more thing. Hatzarach b'yeser, which is very much necessary, l'hol hachafetz, to anybody that desires be'emes, in reality, in truth, b'kirvas halakim, to be close to divinity. Ve'einer reitze letzeis yedei chavase, and he doesn't want to fulfill his obligation, lahates es atzmei, to fool himself. In other words, whatever you need to know. One second. So, in other words, whatever you need to know in all the parts is going to be in these 54 chapters. From these 54 chapters, you're going to be able to find out other details. You're going to be able to find out other details. But there's one more thing we need to teach you now about impact. And let's go on to the next page. I'm going to find out one more thing. There's one more thing we need to know. Vahu, and this thing that you need to know, b'yes yadua, it is known, sheb'chol ha'izbeinus, that anytime you reflect b'inyan eliki, in anything of the divine, dehisavus yesh mayin, and what basically we reflect on how the tangible comes from the intangible, how the concrete comes from the abstract, how the matter comes from energy. That is what it's all about. We mentally think about how matter comes from energy, how the yesh, how the concrete comes from the abstract, b'chol makom, in any place, l'fi mashahu, whatever it is. In other words, this is a rule when you're learning Kabbalah, when you're learning Zohar, and you don't, person opens up Zohar, he doesn't know this rule, so he's not really using the information. He's reading the book, but he doesn't know what to do with it. He doesn't have the skills. It's like reading a cookbook and you don't actually put the salt and actually put the water and you don't actually put the flour. You're not going to get dinner. So when you were learning any concept in Chassidus, in the Kabbalah, we have to think about, okay, what's concrete over here and how this concrete actually comes from the abstract. Harikol Beisinyanim. In every subject that we learn, there's going to be two parts. Ha'alef, the first part, is bechinas habitul hayesh la'ayin. How the yesh, how the concrete and tangible is actually totally dependent. Bitul is like, it's like, sounds like the word vital. And in French, vital is life. Like its life is totally dependent. It's totally nullified. That means dependent. It cannot exist to the abstract. In other words, whenever you understand something concrete, you have to realize that the abstract is what's powering it. Without the abstract, it wouldn't be here. We need to understand the value of the limited creation, or the limited molecule, or the limited cell, or whatever we're thinking about. First we have to understand the concrete, and how the concrete actually comes about, how's its mitzios, um, how its matter comes about, ma'ayin, from the intangible. And this is something that's very close to the intellect, to the psychology of a person. If we're going to use a number of explanations, and dimyonis means like things we can imagine. Hamashalim, metaphor. B'kahai gavna, and similar mental activities. Till the idea becomes real in the mind very well. Blush in Yiddish to help us understand. We use Yiddish in order to explain things a little better. Es legt sich in Mayach Zeir. It lays down. Legt is like to lay down in the brain very well. And that's what we want. We want to understand the concrete. We want to realize that the concrete is really dependent, totally dependent on the abstract. And using metaphor, it's possible to do this till a person's really comfortable intellectually with this idea. Va'beis, and the second part of any study of Kabbalah or study of divinity, inyan bechinas ha'ayin eliki hamahava oisei. Then we have to think about the intangible, abstract, divine that is bringing this concrete into existence. The Ve'echshehu nivdal, well, we did that already. So there's a second point over here. Ve'echshehu nivdal be'erach, and how this abstract is actually separated in quality. It's something totally beyond the concrete. Nivdal means separated. Be'erach, in its value. It's something a total wonder compared to the concrete. Liyase bilti bal gvul, being that God has no limits, and we find it hard to understand infinity. We have to. There's in math, you have a concept that even when you come to infinity, you have to like, there's some way of jotting it down. So when we're dealing with infinity, there's ways of dealing with that information. So we have to realize the concrete comes from an infinity. And you know what? This is hidden from the eye of the intellect. We cannot properly understand infinity with complete grasp. Nevertheless, since we have divine soul inside us, it's possible that yuvrak means a flash. It's possible that it flashes barak, like lightning. Biskira ba'alma, it becomes like a blink of an eye. B'meicha, in the brain. Amitis inyana, the real way as it really works. So you're trying to understand how this infinity is giving existence to the concrete. Well, it's only going to happen for a flash, but you know what? Since we have the divinity inside us, we're going to get the real idea, but it's only going to be for a split moment. To measure the way it is in reality. The rest of the time, most of the day, we're not going to fool ourselves to say that we understand divinity. But when we're doing this process for one flash, we are going to understand as if in a blink of an eye, and then we won't be able to explain it properly. This whole experience is going to be like, it's going to be like hidden. It's as if it's going to become real, as if you just saw something, and it's going to be like a wow for a moment. And this experience of a momentary wow, a momentary flash of the reality, how the abstract is dependent, to how the concrete is dependent on infinity. This experience that comes for a moment is the difference between the vision of the right brain, Riya, vision, the Chachma is wisdom, which is insight, which lives in the right brain. Kayachma, Chachma is spelled in 4 Hebrew letters, and when you divide up those Hebrew letters into, you can actually respell them, and it really means Kayachma. Kayachma means the power of what? The power of what means that you don't have a clear definition on something, but you know what it isn't. At least you know what it isn't. So you can say what a little bit, it's a little bit fuzzy. This is something, you know that there's a what over here, and it's the power to be able to define that there's a what. Shemanefesh, and this is in every soul in the right brain. Sheraya, you do see, but however, it's not a visual, tangible vision. Ki'im ria sichlis, it's only an intellectual vision, and it comes as a flash of lightning, beyond concrete grasp, Gemura, complete grasp. It's not possible to have complete grasp. Valkain, and therefore, the hispilus means the movement. In other words, the impact that this is going to have on the human is bittul, is that nullification, which in French, vital means life. So nullification means life, because it's going to give us life. So the flesh comes from the right brain, and the concrete understanding comes from the left brain. So that we're going to have from momentary movement, it's going to come from the right brain, and it's going to cause us to have a level of vital, nullification. Vital in French means life. It's going to be vital. It's basically vital to our life. Shuhurak heder hagashas atzmei. And what's going to happen for a second, a person won't feel himself. You know, people like are always missing. They want to be able to feel themselves, and you drink the coffee, and then somebody smokes a cigarette, and people doing all sorts of things to be able to feel themselves. But ultimately, when the kids have the most fun, when they don't know that they're having fun. I'll say that again. When the kids have the most fun, when they don't know they're having fun. So this is heder hagasha satzma. You don't feel yourself. It's fun. You don't even know that it's fun, because it's really fun. And that's going to happen for one little moment. But that's enough. That's going to make impact. Blush in Yiddish. In Yiddish, to be able to explain it a little better, werd zurührt von Ort. The experience is a person's like moved. It's like a wow. He's moved from his place. The Eina Margish Gamza Gufa. He didn't even know that happened. He just did a wow, and he doesn't even know that he was wowed. It's just so amazing. And that is the second part. However, the first part, that this is not up to us so much, the second part. That God does. But the first part is concrete understanding. Let's compare this. Bain means between the shmiya of bina, of the listening of the left of bina, of concrete understanding that's in the left brain. Shababa asago gemura mamish. That comes into the brain with complete grasp. Shu be'echus hitzavot hayesh ma'ayin. The value of the hisavos means how the yesh, how the concrete comes about from the abstract, from the infinity. The concrete we can understand, and that is in the left brain. She'ispilus mizeh, the emotional impact that this has, hu hasimcha b'murgish. It is a tangible, felt happiness. Okay, there is a recipe for happiness, and that is deep understanding using the left brain. But toiv lev, And another thing is the person's heart becomes a good heart. Kol shemasa yoser, the more you understand in your left brain, yoser tovlei, the more things become good for you. You are good, you're happy. So there is a recipe to happiness. So I would think that people all over the world, everybody's looking for happiness and everybody wants vitality. Here it is. This is the secret. And I think a lot of people do it to an extent. I mean, people when they study things and they put a lot of effort, they experience happiness. But this is something special what we're doing now. It's in the study of divinity. Blush in Yiddish. So what happens when you understand the concrete in your left brain? Es is sehr gut machayel nefesh. We say es is sehr good. It's really good. Machayel nefesh, and it gives life to the soul. The more you're going to go deep, yoser masig, you're going to understand more. And that's what happens. On the other hand, the right brain, the vision of insight, of the wisdom of the right brain, the exact opposite emotional thing happens. The seeing of wisdom from the right brain, the exact opposite emotional happens. The more deeper you want to go, the more it's going to be yifla. You know, it's like the word alpha, but the opposite. Yifla is like the opposite of alpha. It's spelled the other way. Means it's like beyond you. Beyond you. The more you study it, the more the actual content of the infinity, of divinity, becomes more difficult to grasp. Hamahava, which brings everything into existence. Kulu. The wonderness of the massiveness, you can say that, of the value of infinity becomes greater and greater. Like we think infinity is something big, but the more we study about it, the more it becomes a wonder to us. And the emotion that happens, I'm a little further down. Let's make it green. Until a person actually has pain and he's even worried. Commercial Kosovik, like it's written in the holy books. And just give you a note that the way this book is, you're going to see it set up, is it starts off a chapter and says the mashal, the metaphor is, and then the next chapter it's going to say the nimshal, and the lesson of the metaphor. So whenever we're learning the mashal, that's the part where we can possibly understand. That's the concrete. That's the thing that's going to give us the happiness. But we just have to not focus on happiness because we have to let it happen. We just have to understand. See, you have to make happiness happen. You can't want happiness. If you want happiness, go and understand this. You have to focus on understanding the mashal, the metaphor. And then you start reading a chapter and it says, Vanimshal, that's the part that we're not going to be able to understand. That's the infinity. That's the part, the more you try to understand, it's just going to become a flash. And this is all part of the experience. You have to allow yourself to realize that you're not going to get it. Anybody that looks deeply in every part, he will come to these two experiences. He's going to reflect on what is hidden, the infinity, and the Gila, and what's revealed is the tangible. And the emotional movement, hispilus is movement. The emotional movement is going to be two opposites. Haim, then they are libe bekirbe. The heart is sort of worried inside him. That's from when he's trying to understand infinity. Aletza mafla, because of the awesome way out. This is like totally beyond a person. Hasaga, beyond understanding. Bain Elki, in the intangible divine Hamahava, which brings things into existence. Vasimcha bahasagose. But the other part of the experience will be the happiness from what he does understand. Well, in the quality of how things come about, hamishava, the things that exist, came into existence. Now he's going to give a little bit of an example. For example, I'm going to give you a model. If you're going to think about this in all the parts, Galgalim, in how the Galgalim come about. Now we're doing Yichudei Tata, the lower unity, and we're starting off with something which is visible. We always try to start off with something that's visible, and what's visible is the stars, and the stars, they swim inside these electromagnetic. I'm going to call it electromagnetic because it's easier to understand. Sea. In other words, the stars, the various different stars, they swim inside an electromagnetic sea, and it's not that the stars move in an orbit; it's the entire sea moves, and the star moves with it. It's like something's inside the water, and the water's moving, the river's moving, and the person's moving with the water, and that's how what's actually happening in the sky is these galgalim. These galgal is a circle, is a tire. So these massive tires, and actually they're shaped like onion rings. These massive onion rings are moving in certain ways, mathematical ways, and you can see the stars move across the sky at night. Ma'ayin alaki, and these electromagnetic seas, depend on the abstract divine power to bring them into existence. Shubachinas kelim hachetzenim, the malchus da'asiya. Now there's actually let's say there's 9 major ones, and they are the external vessels. And I'm going to say some gibberish too, and then I'm going to explain it. The external vessels of the expression of the world of Asiya. Now I'm going to explain it. We said before that there's 4 worlds. Let's just focus on the fourth world, the world of action, our world, the world of Asiya. In the world of Asiya, there are 10 building blocks, and they are repeated twice more. In other words, there are 10 building blocks, the 10 sfirot. We've spoken about them many times, and the 10 sfirot are repeated 3 times. So altogether, there's 30, and there's 10 for the intellect, 10 for the emotion, and 10 for the action. Let's say that again. Why are there 30 building blocks in our world of Asiya? Because 10 are responsible for the brains of Asiya. 10 are the motions of Asiya, the emotions of Asiya. And 10s are the actual practical, tactical movement of the world of Asiya, that the wind blows and the things grow and the water runs, and whatever needs to happen happens. That is the last 10. That's what they do. Now the first 10 are not even considered part of the creation. They're considered the divine, the actual brains of Asiya. The first 10 are not considered part of the creation. They're considered the divine. The next 10, the emotions of the world of Asiya, are actually, we become the shirt. We humans have the opportunity to become. We're like the shirt of those 10 emotions of Asiya. That's our human touch. And our job is to lift ourselves up, that we're going to be actually the shirt of the 10 of the divine by choosing to do the right things, by choosing to do the commandments, by choosing to make this world a more of a divine place, we actually not only become the shirt of the 10 middle sphirot, the 10 middle building blocks, but it actually become the shirt of the 10 divine sphirot, which are beyond creation. They're divine. They're not part of the creation, but we become divine. We become something beyond creation when we choose the right behaviors. And then there's the last 10, which they're just the mechanical um, part, and they are the angels. They are the angels. So it is our job. It is our job in this to use the basically every physical thing in this world has an angel behind it. So it's our job to actually use the last 10 building blocks, which actually are the angels, which actually become the physical things, and use those to create a world for divine purpose. So we elevate everything. We elevate ourselves by choosing to do the right things. But what are we going to use to choose the right things? We're going to use the physical world. So we elevate the angels. So probably before you heard this, you thought that the angels are higher than us. Well, I have to say that the angels help us, but they're actually dependent on us because they also want to be elevated to a new level. And the only way they're going to be elevated to a new level is if we choose the right behaviors. Now, the last of the 10 sfirot is Malchus, is kingship, which is actually expression. And there's what you want to express and then what you actually express. In other words, there's a pen writing an essay, and then there's the essay going on its own. In other words, there's the hand throwing a rock, and then there's the rock flying in the air. So the way this world is set up is we don't see the divine hand moving the stars and the planets. We don't see that. It's like a rock that's thrown. It's as if it's going on its own. It's like a clock that's going on their own. So if we would see Malchus, the 10th Sphira, we would actually see divinity directly moving, like this invisible hand moving the stars and the planets and the sun and the moon and everything happening. But God set it up such a way you don't see it directly, and that's called Malchus the Malchus. Like there's an expression of an expression. It's you don't see the hand throwing the stone. It's as if the thrown stone is flying in the air, and you have to make the mental calculation that things don't fly on their own. The batteries would run out. So obviously there's some invisible hand that's flying it, and that's called Malchus the Malchus. Now, these last 10 sfirot, they're called the external vessels. Let's say there's only 10. So there's only 10 sfirot, and we say the internal vessels are vessels for the intellect. The middle vessels are the vessels for the emotion, and the external vessels are the vessels for what tactically happens in this world. So these onion peels, these invisible electromagnetic massive seas that move the sun, moon, and the stars in their orbits, these are actually vessels for the Sfirot. So you actually can physically see Sfirot. There you are. Look up in the sky, and you're able to see the Sfirot by the movements of the stars. And they're basically, that's the only Sfirot that we actually can see with our physical eyes. The external vessels of the 10 Sfirot, of the expression, the double language means that it's going to be thrown. We're not going to see the divine hand, the Asiya of this world. So let's go on. You know, if it's difficult to understand, listen to this again. But I'm going to continue reading. These electromagnetic galgalim, wheels, tires, onion peels, these round balls or layers, peels of the ball, they are just they are an external vessel. In other words, they're only a vessel to the locomotive aspect. Hara de hara levad, and they are shine of a shine. Because if it would be one shine, you would at least see the author but they're a shine of a shine. In other words, a thrown stone. You can only see the stone, and you have to just, in your mind, make the connection that actually somebody threw it. Hameir benefesh ze'agalgal, and that's the amount of energy which actually shines in this electromagnetic, powerful. Um, now I'll explain how it's really powerful, because the power of the sun, or the stars, to be able to make the nuclear fusion to create those millions of atom bombs exploding every moment to make the light which they have, they actually tap into the light, to the energy of the galgal. That's the way it was explained to me. So, and how much energy is in the galgal? Well, it's only the external vessels, a shine of a shine, right? So you can imagine that the actual 10 sfirot have much more energy. Each time you go up a level, it's at least 10-fold. And their energy is actually in how much they understand about divinity. In other words, what makes them who they are is their intellectual aspect of what they recognize. So that's the amount of energy. That people don't know this, but if you look in the Rambam, they do have brains. They're like this massive computer. They are a massive computer. They are a quantum supercomputer, and they understand divinity better than our animal soul. And that's what shines in this galgal, in this wheel. It understands, this massive computer understands the creator which creates it. And that's why it is what it is. Now we're going to say the first created world is God's thought. So there's angels over there also. And these angels they're a greater computer. The Ema Makanana, because the Ema Makanana means the mother. The mother is a metaphor for detailed thinking. So God's detailed thinking, Makanana, Kanana means it nests. So God's detailed thinking nests itself in the world of Bria. So the creations from that world are all about understanding. So those angels are a massive supercomputer. Shemasigin Kayach Eliki. They understand the power of divinity, the Malchus the Atzilus, of the expression of the divine world of Atzilus, which is not even considered a creation. It's considered God's personality. So what do they understand? The Malchus, there's an expression of Atzilus. Again, it's like it's throne. There's the expression of Atzilus, and then the expression of the Atzilus creates another expression when you don't see the author. You don't see the author. And that's what these angels understand, Hamahava Isam, and they understand the energy which gives them existence. Now, this whole exercise, Harizeu Musag Basaga, all of this is actually understandable. You can actually make an exercise to understand what's going on. Vispal Migadla Sabera, and if this is new information, it's going to affect you, this greatness of the system which the creator made. And we recognize that everything that's going on in this whole system, they're totally nullified to what God wants. No, there's no other power. The only reason why the things seem like they have another power is in order to create a storyline where we have a challenge, where we have to overcome the challenge and then really bring out our divinity when things look bad and we still persevere. But they really don't have, there's no real other power when we understand the system. Meshakosov, like it says, it's written actually in the prayers, it's written in the prayers, Utzva Shemaim L'cham Ishtachavim. Besivuvam. The hosts, the army of the heaven, which is the stars, and their electromagnetic sea, the galgal, which they're in, the big tires, invisible tires, to you they bow, bisivuvam, through their constant turning. In other words, their turning is actually a song. They are physically bowing to their creator. That's what happens in the higher worlds. In the higher worlds, people, they don't speak, they sing. They sing and they bow because they understand how massive, massive and amazing the whole system is. And they're very thankful for being creations and be able to recognize what's going on. But if these, no, if we try to understand the intangible divine of the expression of a asiya, not the expression of the expression, that's the throne stone. But if we try to understand the hand of the creator, hamahava, that brings all of these things into existence, it's going to be hidden, the essence of them, from understanding. We're not going to be able to understand the actual hand of the divine. Only that automatically, we have to say that something exists beyond our understanding. Basaga, in our comprehension. It's like what they say in science. They say like, oh, everything came from a big bang. Okay, came from a big bang. So you're saying that there was some energy before, and you can't even speak about it. So even the what we were taught in science classes, that also gives recognition that there's something beyond. If there's a big bang, that there's something, so there must have been some sort of energy that made the big bang. But we don't know what that is, right? That's the ayin. But we have to say it exists. Achar his ames after it becomes real to us, the way the tangible came into existence. So first we have to understand the tangible. And only in a hidden way, the real, the divine hand, the malchus, the actual divine expression is understood. We understand it. It's something beyond. It's the infinity. Go try to understand infinity. Nivdal dafka. It's really separated from our conscious grasp. Now we're going to do the higher unity. We said that the lower unity is till Atzilus and until Malchus the Atzilus in general. And now we're going to do the higher unity, where we're going to speak about the God's personality, how it really doesn't add to himself, how it's really part of God's essence. So too, we do this same activity when we understand, when we think about the parts of Atzilus, of God's personality, perfectly. So there's and Kli. There's always the energy and the matter, but there's no matter over there. It's just the limited on the energy. So it's basically the is the light and the Kli is the vessel. It's just a metaphor. There is no light and vessel like we understand it, but it's the idea of a light in a vessel. It's the idea of light shining through a certain colored cup. The cup gives it a definition. Now, for example, when you bring about the light of chesed, of kindness, divine kindness, which actually is a source of creation, Shiva Malchus in God's expression, because if you have kindness and you don't express it, so there's two things. There's a kindness in the expression, or Batzilus Era Chesed Shiva Chachma, or how the light of kindness is in the building block of insight, divine insight. When we're thinking about these things, Yusag, and it's actually possible to understand kindness. It's possible to understand kindness it's possible to understand kindness in expression. It's possible to understand kindness in insight, in wisdom, right? Al derech dubyan, and we'll give you a little dimyan, we'll give you a little bit of thing to imagine. Al derech dimyan, this is this is what we're giving you to imagine. Ma'er anetzel lamata, from light that is actually comes about in this world. Begilui mahelem ha'atzmus. It reveals from some essential power source. For example, there's a story that God took from the spirit, the Moshe of Moses. In other words, when he created the first court of 71 judges, And this court essentially existed for a really long time till the destruction of the Second Temple. But the rabbis nowadays actually also directly received from the rabbis that were originally made into rabbis through Moshe. And what he did is he needed to take some of his superpowers, his spirit, and he needed to give it on to the other rabbis. So he took his light and he basically put it a little bit into these rabbis. I remember when I was put into a position of leadership, when I was 20 years old, teaching in yeshiva. So things that I studied in the Talmud were difficult for me. When I was 19, automatically the answers were coming into my brain, and I was just so wondrous. It was so wondrous because I have to teach. Suddenly, I understand things I never understood before, and this was like really blew me away. And that's what Moshe did. So there was it was the 71 judges were the first rabbis. They were, it's created in the Bible. Moses created these 74 and he took a little bit of his light. God took a little bit of the light of Moses and spread it to the 71 judges. So he lit their candles so that they could be good judges. They could have the intuition, a little bit of Moses. So that's the way these 10 building blocks in the world of Atzilus are created. It's like God takes a little bit of his light and he creates these little candles. B'kahai Gavna, and little different exercises of imagination we can do. V'yusa Gamken, and these things are actually understood. Binyan Yisavus Midas Tatzilus, and we can understand how through these activities of imagination we can understand how the emotions of Atzilus came about. Gam shehem bechinas mekaraim nivdalim min hashpa eliki b'nivraim. Even though these emotions are really, they're sources, they're like the building blocks, but they're separated from the actual divine energy that goes into the creations. In other words, it has to be much, for people to have their own personalities, you have to really like tone it down. Basically, it's like really separated and toned down by the time these building blocks come to the creations. Otherwise, it'll be overwhelming. However, the real so now there was a question that came up: how does the pain arise? And we're going to speak about that pain, and we're going to speak about that pain in the chapter 6 again. And it's basically when you have like just imagine having a math problem and you become really focused on trying to solve that problem, but then you realize you can never get it. So there's going to be an intellectual pain from that, but the outcome of that is going to make a good impact on the soul. So don't worry about it. So, but the actual intangible light, real light, which shines on them, on the 10 Sfirot, from the essence of God, Hamatzilam, who actually brings them into existence, Lo Yusag, you won't be able to understand it. Av b'dimyan seichel, even if you're going to imagine, activities in imagining it, you're not going to get it. You're only going to be able to get it in a hidden way, because ultimately you do come from God, so your divine soul will be able to a little bit relate to this. And that will be the vision of the intellect, but it's going to be beyond your grasp. But tvisa, you're not going to be, tvisa means to grasp something. It's going to be beyond your grasp, mamish. Kamaimer, like it says, leis machshava tvisa bach. There is no thought that can grasp you God. So it depends what. If we're speaking about the what's created, that we can grasp. If we're speaking about the source, the infinite source, there's no grasp. It can't grasp you. It's only going to be a flash. Shu machshava divina, the thoughts of the left brain will not be able to grasp divinity. Forget about it. Will not be able to grasp the source of the divine. The truth is, it's the opposite of tangibility. Why? Because it's infinite, and the brain cannot deal with something that's really infinite. Because the more you try to get it, the more it becomes wondrous. Hemenu, it becomes higher than you. Atzmius Amatzil, the actual essence of the light, which brings things into existence. Hey. Vasiman lezeh hu haneled mizeh bechinas habitul b'yeser. So what are you going to, how is this going to manifest? It's going to manifest that the person becomes nullified. He gets vitality, and he gets humility, real humility, that he doesn't even know that he's humble, which is pretty amazing. He gets humility, and he doesn't, and at the same time he has vitality, and he doesn't even notice it. Now it turns out that this experience of bittul, which is a humility, vasimcha, and happiness, mistaftim, they actually spread out, v'noldim, and they get born, mahachma bina, from the right brain and the left brain, from insight and understanding. Shebachol prat, in every part of the levels of creation that you study, you can have this double experience: happiness and humility. Happiness comes. They're gonna have to come at the same time. So real happiness is gonna come together with humility. Isn't that interesting? Dafka specifically. B'cholis beinus, in every reflection, b'chol prat v'prat, in every single little part. So you don't need to learn the whole Chassidus. You can have the benefits just by doing some learning, and you already get benefits. V'ha and actually, one is dependent on the other. And this is mind blowing. V'im loy hasaga b'yesh, if you do not have a proper understanding in the tangible and the concrete, in the chaimer, which is the,
I think it says v'im lo hasimcha b'yesh.
Oh, okay, you're right. If you do not experience happiness in the tangible understanding, from good understanding, that means you gotta be able to explain it to another person. You will not be able to come to the wondrous understanding in the actual abstract. If you do not understand the tangible, you will not be able to get any idea of the abstract. Define. And according to the amount of happiness, that's the amount of humility you're going to have. Mamish says it's like two sides of a weight. It's like a balance. It's going to be exactly according to the amount of happiness that you have from the concrete understanding. That's how much humility you're going to get. Because according to the amount, to the quality of your understanding, in the created, in what comes about. Kach erach. Let's go to the next page. Kach erach hafla behevdel hamahave. That's how much you're going to have a wonder in the separation of the infinite creator. That's the only way you're going to have any idea, any connection to the infinite. And this is a big rule in any contemplation that you're going to have in Kabbalah. This rule applies whether you're thinking in parts or whether you're thinking in the holistic way. Last week we spoke about there's an advantage to thinking holistically, even though it's much more meaningful to think in details. However, the holistic thinking gives you the right goal. So it's important to do both. You go into the parts in order to make impact, to make something real, and you go into the holistic in order that you're going the right direction to the right goal. Now we're going to say some very, very important statements, and it's going to stop us fooling ourselves. So it says like this: Masha'en kain. This is not the case. Misha nidbela, a person that he thinks to him, he imagines. Shetefes heitev hisavos. He thinks he's really got the creation. I got it. I understand it. Ve'ein loy bechinas bittul mitzad ha'mahave. But he doesn't have humility to the Creator. And the humility also comes with the fact that he actually takes action to align his behavior, his thought, speech, and action with what the Creator wrote. He wants from us, creations. So in other words, if you see that he doesn't live his life according to the words, and he doesn't have humility, you know he doesn't have it. And he says this, look what he says next. Lohisi klum. He didn't understand anything of Kabbalah, of Chassidus, bevadai. He says, for sure, he did not understand anything. Bli safek. Now he says it again, without any doubt, he didn't understand anything. So if you want to know if the guy is real, his lifestyle will match his understanding, and his humility will match it as well. And if a person feels that he's humble and he's nullified and he's aligned and he's doing and he fits in with the he fits in with the lifestyle, mitzad ha'plos erech ha'mahave, because of the wonder of the divine Creator, he's very spiritual. However, you see, when you speak to him, he didn't really understand. He can't explain himself. He cannot explain the creation. He cannot explain the concrete. He's not understandable. So dimyan shavhu. This is a worthless dimyan, a mirage. Basically, it's a worthless mirage. So you have to look at a person's lifestyle. You have to look if they're humble. And then you have to look as, can they explain? Do they understand the creation? Okay, they don't understand the divine, but do they understand the creation? And what this means that he has no humility and he has no nullification, and it's just a mirage. Kiha baha talia, because one is dependent on the other. Lifir erach dafka, they're exactly aligned. They're exactly specifically aligned. Mitam and alpha, from everything that we've explained. So there's like really a bunch of states over here. There's understanding, there's happiness, and there's humility. And together with humility is being aligned as a human being with the words or what's in our thought, speech, and action. So you can't become happy. You can make yourself happy, but really deeply happy in with your full human potential of how you're designed by God to be able to be happy. The only way you're going to do that if you put intellectual effort. Then you tap into real happiness deep inside. And then what's going to happen is you're going to get happiness. And if you really can, and if you're really happy, you're also going to get humility. So you have to see that a person's aligned, and you have to be able to see that a person can explain. And he's going to be a happy person. Ki yadua, like this is known, l'chol teimei tam, to all the people that tasted, beis be'emes, real Hasidic contemplation, real Kabbalistic contemplation, as atzmam klal, and they don't fool themselves at all. V'kasher yuvan Kol Zel Regilim Bedach. This is all known to the people that are regular in the study of Divrei. Dach is an acronym for Divrei Elikim Chaim, the words of the living God. Menureim, from their youth. You gotta train yourself from the youth. It's like learning an instrument. You gotta train from your youth. I mean, you can learn when you're older, but it's easier when you're young. And there are many people that fool themselves in in a bunch of ways. That's why you need a guide. You need a coach. Okay, people fool themselves. You need a coach. The person from the outside will be able to tell if you're really humble. The person on the outside will be able to see if you're like walking around unhappy. The person on the outside would be able to tell if anything that you say makes sense, and if you can explain concrete things. So if you fulfill all these requirements, then you're going the right direction. So it's important to have a coach as part of this at least a friend that can monitor you, that you're actually getting these benchmarks, which are very, very important because they are the benchmarks of your success. So we've really spoken about really fundamental things. And Rabbi Smith, can you take it away with something for the week, for the Parsha Shavuos?
Sure. I just want to mention that there are a few questions here that weren't addressed yet.
Yeah, let's address them.
Can the pain present as anxiety or sense of being out of time and space? That was question number 1. Oh, that was you answered that. No, I think maybe you answered. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the pain is only going to should be momentary. It seems like there's 3 levels. We're going to learn about it next week. There's 3 levels in the pain, but it's only going to be momentary because just the same way as the flash is for a moment. So you're going to go back to the happiness because your life in general, you need to function on a happy level. Okay.
Okay. The 71 judges are the first rabbis is the next question.
Yeah, what's the question? Yeah, they are the first rabbis, yeah.
You said that when contemplating infinity, pain can arise. How does that pain present? Can it present as a sense of time and space being less solid?
We're going to speak about it next week. There's three levels of pain, and we're going to go into this really much into the pain. There's 3 levels in the pain, and there's also a way to do it nowadays. That is, people need to be happy nowadays to be able to function, and there's a safe way of doing that, of allowing one's pain to manifest, because and nowadays people need to be uplifted. So there's a way to do that, right? And there's 3 levels. We'll speak about that next week, with the help of Hashem.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Rabbi Chirik.